Hello everyone. Today I decided that I would try and explain a theory of mine that I have. Now keep in mind that I am no scientist, nor do I have any degrees on science, or any other such degrees that would classify me as an expert on these subjects. However, I do fancy myself a thinker, and I just used some logic to come up with this working hypothesis as it is here. This is what I'm going to be talking about, a working hypothesis. It is a hypothesis that was provisionally accepted as a basis for further research in the hope that a tenable theory could be produced even if the hypothesis ultimately fails. Now, I may have messed up some of those words, like temporarily, that I switched from provisionally or whatever, and I messed up this hypothesis, but that's besides the point. Okay. I call this theory that I'm working on the infinite time loop theory, or the infinite time loop hypothesis. Now, this theory is kind of complicated and I think silly, but I mean, it's silly in the fact that it's just blatantly smacking logic in the face for a little bit, but it actually sounds good in the actual big theme of things, so follow along, okay? Now, infinite time loop theory is, in an unforeseen time in the future, humanity develops time travel. Now, already you're probably like, really? Time travel, huh? Okay. Now, recently I've been informed, or I've read somewhere, that the scientific community no longer is shunning time travel as being blatantly unable to do whatever. So they're actually thinking that it could be possible, so they're actually researching into it a little bit. So down here I have a list of things that we need to allow this theory to exist. We need time travel, and we need an elemental explosive of some sort. And I will get to what that exactly means a little bit later. Now, in this theory, we have a time travel device, and someone goes all the way back to the beginning of the universe. Now, you might already think what I'm thinking here. So, if we go to the beginning of the universe with the time machine, of course, there's nothing there, because it was the start of the universe and there's nothing there. However, if we were to introduce elements to that nothingness in the use of an elemental explosive, and if we were to pack every element known to us in the future, if we were to pack all those elements into an explosive of some sort, and then just go back to the beginning of the universe and detonate it, causing the Big Bang, it would, in a sense, start the creation of the universe. And as we know, the universe is constantly expanding and getting bigger, and because of the explosive force generated from the explosion of setting off the elemental explosive, in my theory, that is what's resulting in it continuing to expand. So, we need the elemental explosive. It's really just the cause of the reaction, and it contains every element known to man. With this explosive, the person who is the time traveler decides to go back to the beginning of time when there was nothing. And since nothing cannot, well, since there's nothing, nothing can happen, so the person time traveling detonates the explosive and thus brings elements into the nothingness, which ends up spawning the universe, which is the Big Bang Theory and such, I assume. And by essentially performing the duty of God in creating this universe, the person is technically the God that people are seeking as the creator of the universe. However, the said person would, of course, die shortly after kicking off creation, since there isn't oxygen or anything life-sustaining in the universe yet. And this theory, because of the time loop, it repeats over and over again, with this noble fellow sacrificing themselves time and time again to create the universe. Now, You might be asking yourself, or you might be a little bit hazy here, so I'm going to just draw an example. Okay, here is the present, represented by this X on the screen, okay? This is the present, and this is the past. We'll put a P here for past, and we'll put an F over here for future. Okay, time is a linear thing, such as that. We go from the past to the present to the future. Now, a time machine would allow jumps to wherever a person would want to possibly go, so they could go anywhere in time, even from the future all the way back to the past or the beginning of time. Now, in doing so, essentially, the person from the future goes back to the past and creates the universe using the elemental grenade, or the elemental explosive, whichever you want to call it. Now, because he went back in time, that begins time. And so time starts from the past and goes all the way to the present, and then continues from the present to the future. Now, because we still do not know what created the universe in the future, we decide to go back in time again and create it ourselves using the elemental grenade, or the elemental. I'm just calling it an elemental grenade because explosive takes a little bit longer to say. So we go back in time again. Now, time goes over again, and it repeats itself, and it repeats itself, and then we go back in time once again to create the universe. Yeah. As you can see, it's a giant loop, just going around and around and around and around. So, this accounts for how the universe was created, and the future does not just stop when they go back in time. So the future would actually continue on to a greater future. However, that person's future who went back in time would actually end as he would die. But that is how the universe, in my eyes, could have been created. Now, as I said, this is just a working hypothesis, so I don't really have anything to fully back this up except for my own thinking. But once we actually do develop time travel, if we do, and if we can develop an explosive that can contain all the elements known to man, and they can become self-replicating or something, then I don't see why this could not be a feasible argument. Like I said, we would need time travel and an explosive of some sort, but we'd also need that noble fellow to go back in time for us. However, this theory has one hole in it that I really would like to point out. Let's ask a question. How did the first cycle begin to allow the individual who created everything in the first place to exist? My answer, well, there really wasn't a first cycle. It's just a loop, a giant loop. So basically we could say that the universe started, and we will use orange, it started in the future. And this gets a little bit confusing, but it starts in the future when the person goes back in time to create the universe. Confused? I am a little bit too. Like I said, it's a working hypothesis, but then we go back to the future, and then back to the present, and back to the future, and it just keeps looping over and over again. That's why it's called the infinite loop theory, because it infinitely loops until infinity. And that is essentially infinite loop theory. Well, it's not really a theory yet, it's more of a working hypothesis, but I figured I would just post this and get people thinking about different things. I mean, and if you were going to go out and talk about this, you're going to want to say that this is just purely hypothetical, and it probably is not real, but it never hurts to think of stuff, you know. I mean, you can always learn a different thing, but I don't know. What am I trying to say here? It never hurts to think, is what I'm trying to say, I suppose. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching my explanation, if it was indeed any use of my time loop hypothesis, infinite time loop hypothesis. Gotta have the infinite in there, else it's not exactly right. And feel free to like, comment on it if you think it's good or bad. I really don't care. This is just my own opinion. Subscribe to the Plague Society to keep in touch of our other academic or philosophical discussions and our rants on stuff and all that goodness. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and until next time,